So, open and distance education, what exactly is that? Well, we've covered one unit so far, and for the most part, I think the concepts are fairly straightforward, fairly clear. However, we might still have a few misunderstandings in regards to what open education is and what distance education is. So, in this slide, I'm just going to touch on uh, just the basic concepts just to help us consolidate and understand clearly what the difference is between the two. I think that at least when we say open and distance education, we understand that it's education in the world, not just limited to a classroom, but we're talking about education across boundaries, across nations. Um, so I think that's pretty straightforward. But we do want to understand, once again, that there is a clear difference between what open education is and what distance education is. Now, both can happen at the same time, but that is not necessarily the case, and that you could actually say that happens only sometimes. And we're going to start here with the simplest definition here, which is distance education. And I say simplest because it basically narrows down to two basic things. And here we can have in the slide, you can clearly see all or most of the teaching is conducted by someone removed here. This is important, removed in time and space, and that is basically what I mean by simplistic, because basically any sort of education that happens where the teacher is in one place and the student is in another, then that is basically distance education. Now, sometimes, I know this is very easy, but sometimes it's also a good idea to understand what something is not so that we can better frame what it is. For example, distance education is not this sort of education, which is a standard classroom education. The teacher is right in front right here. The students are there at their desks. This is not distance education. This is in fact face-to-face education or in classroom education. Now, so here we would need to write a big old X to this. This is not the concept that we're looking for. In fact, a better concept of this would be this other one, where clearly we have here the teacher who is in one place and is getting to students uh, through some form of media or technology. Historically, it might have been the telephone or snail mail. Nowadays, it's very common for us to use the internet as a distance education medium. And now the students could be in the classroom, but the teacher is not in the classroom. The teacher is via webcam or video of some kind. And also the students can study from their homes or from a computer lab. They don't necessarily have to be in their home, in the classroom. They can be from anywhere at any time. And that is basically the essence of what um, distance education is. So here for this other picture, we would have to put a green tick because this is in fact the concept of what distance education is. And so we arrive to the concept that is perhaps a little difficult to narrow down because in effect, just to say open, what necessarily does open mean? It could open in itself is fairly an open concept, and it could mean multiple things. It could actually mean open in the sense that it's a course is open to the world, yet it is still teacher directed. But at the same time, if we look within the course, when we say open course, uh, it has to do with actually what is here in the slide and what I would like to highlight here. Now, I'm not putting necessarily a definition per se, but I am putting 3 points which highlight the essence of what open education is. Now, in the first point, we have students pursue educational activities of their own choosing. This is key to what open education is. Um, Students, unlike any other form of education, be it face-to-face or even be it distance education, where there the teacher directs where the student goes, where to start, where to continue, where to end, and what to do in all of those instances, here it is the student. he or she chooses. So the student can come in and start at the end of the course, progress through the middle, and finish at the beginning of the course. A student might start 3/4 of the way, a quarter of the way. So it really depends on the student. He or she has the freedom to select. Now, for this to happen, teachers must create an environment rich in educational possibilities. This is key as well, because this is key on the teacher side, because once you give freedom to your student, to all of your students, to start wherever they want and to progress in any which way they want, this creates a multitude of paths that are going at the same time and crisscrossing back and forth. So as a teacher, you need to create the environment for this to happen. Once again, this can happen in a distance course, and it can happen in a face-to-face classroom. Lastly, teachers give students individualized instruction. Now, once again, the teacher, in current times, teacher is not necessarily the role of a teacher per se, but takes on other multiple roles. And in open education, it's more of an instruction, a guide, and a tutor. Because now you're not necessarily teaching. Students are teaching themselves with the content that you have provided, and now you just orient them, you help them, you give them that little nudge at an individual level. Obviously, it would not be convenient to have an open education course with a big group with a lot of students, because simply it would be just too much work, and you could not give that individualized attention to your students. Now, once again, let's go and understand what open education is not. Okay, what it is not, well, here we have a schedule where it is generally teacher created and teacher implemented, and students follow this schedule. This is not open education. This generally happens in a face-to-face classroom, and also generally happens for us in our Mexican culture, happens in a distance course as well. But this is clearly not something that happens in an open education course. No matter if it is distance, no matter if it is classroom, the teacher never gives out a schedule. Not in the traditional sense that we might say for finishing Unit 1, finishing Unit 2, finishing Unit 3, having exams, and delivering assignments. That is not the case. More precisely, what it is that students have the freedom, once again, to select from all of the topics that are provided by the teacher, of course, and they can juggle them as we have here in the graphic, and they decide where to start, where to continue, and where to end. Now, again, obviously the teacher has to provide all the content and create that environment for that interaction to happen. And that's pretty much it. That is open education. And that is pretty much the two concepts that we have here for open and distance education. I hope this video helped you in consolidating some of the basic concepts that we have for our course, and that you can clearly understand, once again, that there is a clear difference between what open education is, where the student decides, and what distance education is. In our traditional context, in that the teacher, we're taking what happens in the face-to-face classroom and we're just transferring that into the internet and the online world. And still, it is teacher directed. Whereas open education, it could happen in both environments, distance and classroom, and it is the student that decides. So, my name is, well, Teacher Eduardo, and feel free to email me if you have any additional questions on these two basic concepts of what open and distance education is. Till next time.